Hi, I'm Ann Martin, and I previously owned Chase Stream Farm, a 72-acre diversified veggie organic farm in Midcoast, Maine. And I currently am running a couple of programs. I own Farmer Veteran Consulting, and I also run a program called Boots-2-Bushels, which trains veteran farmers into becoming farmers as they are transitioning out of the military or just looking for something different to do, later in their life. I retired from the Marine Corps in 2016, and I served for 27 years active duty as an intelligence officer. And I served in all the places that you would imagine. I was in Afghanistan, Iraq. I lived in Korea as a foreign area officer. I trained in Japan, did lots of exercises in Asia Pacific region. Lived in California and spent a lot of time at the Pentagon. So after 27 years, I kind of had enough of that life. And my partner at the time and I decided that we wanted to do something completely different, get out of the rat race. And that's when we moved up to Maine and we decided that we wanted to start that program or start the farming in Maine. Not knowing anything about farming at all, we just read a lot of books, and one of them that I highly recommend if you're thinking about moving into a colder area like New England is any of the Elliott Coleman ones, and especially the Winter Harvest one. He really talks about, and that's really the one that kind of motivated us to go, wow, we can actually live in Maine and do some great farming there. So we moved up there, and one of our intentions was always to work with veterans who wanted to also get into the business of agriculture. We felt that, the veteran population having that military background was really important and helped us be successful in our own efforts in farming. And this is what I talk with new farmers about all the time that are especially coming out of the military, is that our experiences and the fires and tribulations that we had to go through in the military that honed our skills in resilience and creativity and the discipline and the flexibility are all characteristics that absolutely transition really well into the business of farming. The only thing that most veterans really have not, besides just the basic understanding how to farm and the production of farming, is really those business skills and the concept of being an entrepreneur. Because owning a farm and doing that farm business is absolutely a business, and you are an entrepreneur if you're going into this line of work. And so we had to hone our skills in things like developing a business plan, learning how to do market research, establishing social media. My partner at the time hates social media. I was okay with it. I got a lot better because we found out that that was really a key to a lot of our success, is having a really vibrant, active, and deliberate social media presence. So we can talk about that here in a little bit. Some of the specific requirements when you're just getting started into farming in terms of licensing and certifications really kind of depends on where you're going to go with your business. If you are going to start small and maybe just do a market garden and have a farm stand at the end of your driveway, most of the towns will have a pretty liberal food sovereignty, ordinances, but you just need to make sure that you do check with your city hall on that about requirements for if you do start up a farm stand, because oftentimes there are requirements about how much space can be or needs to be allowed for parking and for, access to the roads and things like that. If you're going to go a little bit bigger and get into farmers markets where you're actually taking your produce and your products out off the farm, then there are some requirements for mobile permits that some of the farmers markets will require. Insurance is also a big deal, because once you start getting away from your farm and providing foods and products to consumers off of your farm, then you do take some liability on. And so you want to make sure that you are working with a great insurance person and company that supports farmers. We worked with Farm Family, and they did well for us. And so they were able to really kind of guide us through some of those regulations. And then obviously if you go into a larger or maybe a smaller wholesale kind of relationship with local grocers. You just want to make sure that you are following the food safety guidelines. And then if you're going into places like big grocery stores, say like Hannaford in New England or Whole Foods, there are some certifications that are federally regulated, and those are called GAP certifications. And there's some other ones that will be required. So it's just kind of like, as you start out small, you kind of work with local ordinances to ensure that you're following the right policies and procedures. But then as you get bigger and bigger, you're going to have to adhere to some other more stringent requirements for food safety. Then obviously, if there's your desire to be organically certified, then there are a whole host of record keeping and that you should be going through in order to meet those certifications and requirements and make sure that your customers understand that the products that you're providing them are safe and healthy, and hopefully won't get them sick. And so that leads me also into establishing your company and what kind of legal situation you should have for your company. Most farmers will start out as a sole proprietor, and that's perfectly fine. That keeps you kind of for tax purposes, any of the money that you earn from your farm business will just pass through and it'll be associated with your own Social Security number. We decided to go ahead and establish ourselves as a limited liability company, an LLC. And that was because we knew we had a lot of property that we wanted to be protected from anything happening. Again, so insurance and your company legal status kind of go hand in hand. And you just want to make sure that you are protected, that your assets, your home, anything that's private to you is separate from what the company is doing. And so those are just some kind of things to think about. Talk with your attorney. Make sure you have an attorney, an insurance agent that are in your back pocket at all times so that you can kind of reach out to them with some questions. So starting a farm business is not a cheap venture. You're going to have to, but again, this is where the creativity comes in. So you could go out and spend your entire life savings on buying some property and getting all the equipment and all the infrastructure that you need on your property to start a farm. You could do that. That's probably going to run you in about the $300,000 range just to get started. Most of us don't want to do that or cannot do that. So there are a lot of creative ways to, work within the systems to get that stuff set for you. If you are lucky enough to want to be a farmer and also have a family farm, obviously you can do some succession planning and take over that farm and take over the equipment and the infrastructure. That would be wonderful. We did not come into this industry with any of that support in background. So we had to do a lot of research on our own to find a good property that we wanted to both have a home, a good school district for our children, and then enough infrastructure on the farm so that we wouldn't have to spend a lot of money to do that. We were fortunate enough to find that, but it did take us, a couple of years to do that. So that's another path. I think one of the easiest paths to go down that I learned only after kind of being in the community for a while is, finding where you want to live, and you can rent or you purchase your property. But at the same time, you want to be able to look for other properties in the area that you might be able to lease, because there's a lot of farmland out there that is not being used, and the people that own the land would love nothing more than to have somebody, on there farming their land. So there's a lot of really great farmers in our community in Mid-Coast Maine that are leasing land. They don't own the property, they lease it, and they're also able to kind of lease some of the equipment that was there. So this is a really, I think, a lower cost entry into the farming industry, is taking a look at using other people's property and just making sure that this is something that you want to do before you fully commit to, buying a huge, 1,000-acre farm. That is going to be really hard for you to keep up. Other ways to get money, there's obviously grants. You've probably heard of these a lot. Unfortunately, there's no grant, like just because you're a veteran farmer or farmer veteran, that you're going to get some money for that. But what the federal government has done is there are some programs where you still compete for grants, say from the National Resources Conservation Society. No, I'm not saying that right. NRCS, National Resource Conservation Service. They do provide some opportunities for grants to get high tunnels. So these are those big 30 by 96 huge structures where you can grow throughout the season, especially in the colder regions. You can get a grant to pay for that entire thing, and they run about $15,000. Being a veteran, you're still competing with everybody else for that grant, but being a veteran gives you extra points. So as they're racking and stacking, they only have a certain pot of money. They can't pay for everybody's high tunnels, but veterans will get extra bonus points, one for being a veteran, also for being a beginning farmer. And then veterans will also get a higher price point for the grant. So for example, if a civilian was reaching out and trying to get that grant and they got the grant, they would get $1 per square foot, paid back to pay for that high tunnel. The veteran will get $1.50. So you actually get back a little bit more money. Do not use those numbers. I'm just pulling those out off the top of my head for example's sake. So one of the things that I wish we had known before we started farming was we started a business plan, but we didn't really think through the business plan. We knew the concept of business plan, and I did the market research and I did all that. But one of the things that what would have helped us do was understand that what we needed to do was start small. And I think this is true for a lot of veterans who jump in without a business plan, is that we tend to do all enterprises all at once. So, our very first year was diversified veggies, chickens, maple syrup, honeybees. Let's add some pigs in there. Let's throw in a couple of sheep. We really just wanted to, we were starting year one like we wanted to look at year 10. And that is a really tough way to be sustainable. And so it took a lot of time, and it created a lot of tension and frustration. And so I just caution everybody, start small. We really needed to understand that we needed to create our holistic visions of what we want our life to look like, because you want your farm to work for you. You don't want to work for your farm. Right. So if taking vacations is really important to you and your family, make sure that you're creating a business that will allow you to do that. And oftentimes owning livestock will not allow you to do that, especially if you're overwintering them. So you don't really get an opportunity to take vacations in the winter like you could if you just did veggies and kind of left it at that. I referred to this earlier, but I think the key to our success has been the social media. Strangely enough, like I think there's that component of being connected to your community, the word of mouth, and all of that works great, but it's even better. And I think of social media as being a force multiplier, because you've got this great product, you're building up these great relationships with people around you, and then social media just gets it out there. We sold things on Etsy. We, had especially during the pandemic, online sales were like a really great way. And people from Alaska and, places that we never would have imagined were wanting to buy our products. And so it was a really great way. And it felt really good just to have, our little piece of heaven, that we were sharing with everybody else as much as they wanted to. So I really encourage, even if you hate social media for personal activities, and I find a lot of veterans we're very private and we don't want to be sharing our lives. You're not sharing your life, you're sharing your business and you're growing your business. And if that's important to you, that social media aspect will actually help you get your products out there and your name out there in a good way, much faster. So next for me is we decided to actually scale back on our farming, and that's okay, because what did scale up in place of that was the program that I run now called Boots-2-Bushels. And we're currently running it just in Maine, but it's a 9-month hands-on veteran to farmer transition training program. And it's really, we now open it up in Maine to all beginning farmers, and it takes you through everything from soil health to, developing that farm business plan. And we talk about social media quite a bit in there. And then you get an opportunity to go onto different farms throughout the state and visit and put into practice a lot of the things that we talked about when we're doing the online programming. And we do the programming January through April timeframe. And then we start our farm visits about the May timeframe. And so I'm building that business is building up, and that program is building, and we're in talks with another nationwide organization to expand that programming out to other states. So that's a pretty exciting activity. And I couldn't have done that without the background that we had in actually running our own farm business, because it just makes us more credible, obviously. And I know what it takes to start farming later in life. Most of the veterans do not come at this at the age of 20 and get to go and live as an apprentice in an apprentice shack and, have an outhouse that you use for the next 2 years. That's just not something that most veterans are looking at. We all have mortgages, we have children, we, have other things that we have going on in our lives. And so you have to come at farming business a little bit differently. And you can ramp up very quickly because of all of our experiences and our confidence and just our wisdom and general knowledge. But there's still some things that need to be done in a very logical manner that we can help get people through so that you're successful as soon as you start, as opposed to stumbling around for 5 years, because that can be pretty painful. And we don't want that. Any advice that I have for veterans interested in starting a farm business is get that business plan done and start small. Start small, understand what you like to do, how much time you want to have to yourself, and that way you can build upon your vision of what you want your life to look like, and again, make that farm work for you and make that farm fit into your life. Most of us, if we've been in the military, we've been at the tip of the spear where we've had to respond to everybody else's wishes and desires. This is your opportunity to be your own boss, obviously, but be your own boss smartly and make sure that you're taking into consideration your family's needs. You have the opportunity to really create a life that you love and still be connected and have a purpose to helping others in your community. And we like to refer to this as our next yes. A lot of veterans, we all raised our hand and made that commitment to serve and honor our country. And this is just another opportunity to serve and honor your community. And so we really love it. And I wish you all the best of luck. So I have 3 books that I would highly recommend to anybody interested in learning farming, improving their farming skills, or just getting started. The first one is called The No-Till Organic Vegetable Farm, and it's by Daniel Mays. He's actually a farmer in Maine, and his farm is amazing, but you probably have started to hear about no-till. This book really walks you through all the steps on how to make your farm healthier and weed free. That is like a huge thing, because you can spend so much time working on weeding your farm. The other one is it's called The Market Gardener, and this is by Jean-Martin Fortier. He's a Canadian farmer. I apologize, I know I'm not figuring out how to do this. And this one is great. This Jean-Martin Fortier has made his name by growing on 1 acre of land and making $100,000 a year. So he just goes to show like how you can intensively plant. He has great crop planting advice in here, crop rotation advice. I mean, this is really a go-to for your learning how to do the production of farming for vegetables. And then finally, for the business side of things, I really highly recommend Richard Wiswall's the Organic Farmer's Business Handbook. And he'll take you through, this background thing does not want to work. There we go. He'll take you through all the steps in defining your enterprises and actually understanding how much it costs you to grow that carrot. And that's really what you want to be able to get to when you're starting to price your products or understand where which products are profitable and which ones aren't. And so you can take these skills and apply them to all aspects of your life. But he really talks about and shows you how to take it through when you're doing farming and your vegetable enterprises.